Alright, hello everyone, and welcome back to my YouTube channel, Clowns in Cyberspace. I'm very excited for today's video because I wanted to take you guys through the process of me remaking one of my older costumes. When I first started sewing 3 years ago, I knew nothing about how to sew, and the way I learned how to sew was through making complicated clown costumes. I think I'm around 12 costumes in now, and I'm pretty confident with the stuff I know now, but that just means that some of the older costumes I've made look kind of rough and I'm not too proud of, so a fun little series that I thought of was going back and reflecting on those costumes and finding out the things I'd like to change about them and show you guys how I refurbish them. So this is that. The clown that inspired me to make this series was my clown character Ashputtle. I've always really loved this character, but if I'm being honest, it's always looked the roughest of all of the clown characters I've made. I believe it was the second character I ever made, and at the time I was really proud of it, but I also knew nothing about how to draft patterns or really how to construct a complicated garment at all, so there are a lot of elements that I'm not too happy with and that I'd like to redo with the knowledge I know now. The biggest umbrage I take with this clown costume would be the shape of it. I was intending it initially to be a little poofier and a little bit more of a voluminous silhouette, and I just drafted the pattern wrong. I didn't know what I was doing. I also think that the mask is a bit rough looking. The headpiece could use some work. It was before I really engineered those to fit my head really well. And also, I thought it could use some matching shoes because the plain white shoes are just boring. So a little bit of backstory on this character. It was originally meant to represent sort of a delicate, fragile, shy archetype who had something that they held dear to them and felt the need to protect, i.e. the pearl in the clamshell that is being kept in the bird cage that Ashputtle carries. The costume was really inspired visually by Rococo fashion and also a little bit of Elizabethan fashion in the pearls and the headgear, but really the colors, the silhouette, and the satin look were all inspired by the Rococo era of fashion. Loosely inspired, of course. I didn't do that much research into the elements I wanted to implement. I just kind of wanted to borrow kind of the vague likeness of those eras. So let's get into my redesign. While I was redrafting the pattern, I decided to make it out of 2 pieces instead of 1. I'm using my tried and true bloomer pattern that I've drafted a long time ago and I use for a lot of my costumes, and I'm also reusing the base of my headpiece pattern, obviously. And then for the top portion, I decided to kind of create a pseudo corset bodice piece that has puffy sleeves. These are the patterns that I've roughly sketched out. I really don't know what to show you because I don't really think of these as a tutorial, more just showing you my process. So if you know how to do this yourself, go ahead, but I don't really know what to tell you on how to explain it. But this is what it looks like. And now on to making the costume itself. Here is the mock-up I made out of muslin of the bodice, and I was quite pleased with it, so I went ahead and found some of the old fabric I still had left over from the original Ashputtle costume and began to construct the bodice out of that. Here is the green brocade fabric and also the pink. I only had a little bit of the green left, so I actually had to go out and buy a very similar looking fabric to this one. This one that I originally bought was actually the end of the bolt at a store, so I was not able to find it again, unfortunately, because I really love it. But the one I found to kind of look like it, I also love, so it wasn't really that big of a deal. And once I had the sleeves finished, I began making the lace trim for the collar, which I hand stitched onto the costume. And then once that was done, I moved on to attaching the zipper, and after that the bodice itself was pretty much done. Here it is, with everything attached except for the beads that I added later, and I was really happy with the way it looked. And here I am attaching the beads to the costume. Since Ashputtle is the pearl and peridot clown, I attached a lot of glass pearls to the costume, and then also little green crystals that look like peridots. And here I am gathering all of the lace for the bloomers, and here is the structure of the inside of the bloomers that I made. This is what they look like in pretty much all my costumes. And then here is the outside shell of the bloomers before I gathered everything. And then after that, here is all of the gathered tulle. And I essentially just add all those things together to create my finished bloomers, and that's that. I also made Ashputtle a pair of matching shoes. I really wanted to do that because I think it would bring the whole costume together in a nice way. So if you want to see the process of how I made the shoes and how I recovered a pair of shoes I already owned, the full version of this video will be up on my Patreon account. Moving on to making the mask, here are all of the materials I use. I start with coating a ceramic replica of my head with plaster strips so that I can build up a nice structure for the clay that I put on. And once I am finished with the bulk of the plaster strips, I go back over all of the edges and reinforce them with more plaster strips so they're nice and strong. If you don't do this, you'll notice that the mask really does fall apart quite easily, so doing that really makes the difference. And then here I am beginning to add the clay on top of the mask. I'm just using oven baked polymer clay to sculpt the face I want. One of the main issues I had with the original costume was that the face itself was pretty rough looking. Back then I was not using polymer clay to make the masks. I was using actually just air dry clay, and that was really hard to work with because it was drying really quickly, and it ended up making the mask look really lumpy and not quite how I would love it to look. So switching to polymer clay really does help because obviously it doesn't dry until you bake it, so you have lots of time to think about what you want to be making the face look like. And here I am going in with some silicone tipped tools to refine some of the details of the mask. I find that the lips are really the hardest part to do. Mouths are really hard to get right, but I think I've gotten the hang of it thus far. And then here I am sculpting the eyelids of the mask. The eyelids are also another really hard part for me. It's hard to make them look really convincing like eyelids and not weird, but you know, I try my best and I think that they turned out fine. And then after that, I just bake the mask in the oven for an hour or so on 275 degrees. Now sanding the mask at night because I guess it was getting late at that point, I don't remember, but sanding the mask is so important because you won't realize how many imperfections are actually still left on the mask after you've sculpted it until it comes out of the oven and you're really able to see all of the imperfections a little bit better. So sanding it down a lot is really helpful. And then here I am mixing together a 2-part epoxy sculpt for the eyelashes to make them nice and strong. The eyelashes I didn't have eyelashes on the original costume, but I think adding eyelashes to the masks really elevates it and makes it look so great, especially when you're looking at the mask in profile and in different angles. Eyelashes really just make it look so good, and I love adding them now, and I would never make a mask without eyelashes. So here I am attaching them. I will admit that it is very finicky to get the eyelashes quite right, but with enough tinkering, they'll look great. Okay, and now moving on to doing the gesso on the mask. Gesso is also very important because it helps smooth down the imperfections even more, and also lets you have that nice white base to paint on top of. But yeah, you can't skip gesso because you'll want to sand it down more and get the mask even smoother. And it's really nice to see, if you've used two different colors of clay like I did, to see it all kind of blend together and yeah, see the shape of the face. What can I say? It's so much fun! And here I am doing the makeup for the mask. I use chalk pastels and a paintbrush to apply them. Really, for most of my masks, I just do blush, lipstick, and blush on the nose, and then also paint the eyelashes black if I want to make it really basic, if the costume is quite elaborate and I don't want to distract from that with the face. But for this clown, since the original clown had green eyeshadow, we'll also be adding the green eyeshadow. But essentially I just build up layers of pastel and then take the mask outside and spray it with a spray sealant, and then come back inside and build up those layers even more. Here I am adding the green eyeshadow, and I'm really loving the way it was looking at this point. And also with a small chisel brush, I am applying some black chalk pastels as the eyebrows. For a couple of the clowns I've used black acrylic paint, but for a softer, more demure look, I think that just using some pastels is best, and I'm also using a kneaded eraser to clean up the edges. And as I said before, here I am spray sealing the mask. I used to put a top sealant on the masks to make it look really glossy and look like porcelain, but I've noticed that with a lot of my masks, that top gloss has yellowed over time, so now I just do the spray sealant and that's it. And here I am painting the eyelashes black. And once that's done, here is the comparison between the old mask and the new mask. As you can see, I think it looks a lot better. The older mask definitely did not age well. The blush is too neon, the colors are too harsh, the shapes are too weird, and I think that I've remedied a lot of those issues in this new mask, and it's nice to see. I'm happy. So here are some clips of me making the headpiece. I essentially for this one took a piece of coroplast and cut out a heart shape for the top of my head, and I covered that in just the same satin fabric I was using all over the body. The original one was made out of cardboard and it's really flimsy, so I figured the coroplast would really help it be really nice and sturdy. So enjoy watching me do that. And there we go. Here is the costume all finished. I'm so thrilled with the way it turned out, and it makes me very happy to see a character who I love come to life in a new way, and be able to put my skills to good use and refurbish a costume that was no longer that great in my eyes. But yeah, I'm so happy, and I'm so excited to go back and look at more of my costumes and see what I can do to refurbish them if they need to be breathed new life into. But for now, here is Ashputtle, the Pearl and Peridot Clown, and thank you so much for watching. I will see you all next time, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel, subscribe to my Patreon if you're able to, and follow me on TikTok, Instagram, if you so please. But yeah, thank you so much, and goodbye!